The vast amphitheater of the Galactic Conclave fell silent as General Morgan Thorne strode into the center of the chamber. The circular arena, designed to intimidate with its towering walls lined with representatives from over 300 species, seemed to close in around the lone human figure. Holographic displays hovered above, magnifying her image for all to see. She wore the formal black and silver uniform of the Terran Defense Force, adorned only with a single platinum star on each shoulder, and the mysterious blue patch on her right sleeve that no alien species had yet deciphered. The chamber itself was a marvel of engineering, carved from a single massive asteroid and reinforced with energy fields that shimmered faintly blue at the edges of vision. Tiered seating rows in concentric circles, each level housing delegates from different sectors of the galaxy. The air hummed with translation devices, converting thousands of languages simultaneously. "The Council recognizes General Morgan Thorne of Earth," announced High Arbiter Vexler, his multifaceted eyes reflecting the harsh lighting from above. His exoskeleton clicked softly as he leaned forward. "You stand before the highest authority in the galaxy to answer for the unprovoked destruction of the Proxima Scientific Outpost. 17 species lost researchers in what appears to be a human military assault." The general didn't flinch. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled back tightly, accentuating sharp features that betrayed no emotion. She scanned the chamber slowly, noting the positions of the 7 Grand Counselors who represented the founding species of the Conclave. "I come before this council not to answer for crimes," she declared, her voice steady and amplified throughout the chamber, "but to deliver a message from Earth." Murmurs rippled through the assembly. The Alturian representative, a gelatinous being encased in a hovering environmental suit, drifted forward. What message could possibly justify the slaughter of unarmed scientists? General Thorne reached into her pocket, retrieving a small metallic cube. The chamber security systems immediately activated, energy barriers forming around her. She smiled slightly. "This contains evidence that will shock this council to its core," she said, placing the cube gently on the floor. It projected a holographic display showing star charts, attack vectors, and communication logs. For the past 17 Earth months, someone has been conducting surgical strikes against remote human colonies. Over 8,000 civilians dead. Settlements erased. She walked through the projection, her figure cutting through stellar maps. "Your scientific outpost was a cover. We tracked energy signatures identical to those used in the attacks on our colonies. When we arrived, we found weapons designed specifically to target human physiology." The general's eyes hardened as she faced the Grand Counselors directly. "You attacked our home, and I'm here to discover which of you authorized it." The chamber erupted in chaos as accusations flew between species. Security drones swarmed down from alcoves in the walls. Through it all, General Thorne stood unwavering, watching the pandemonium with calculating eyes. In the shadows of the upper gallery, a hooded figure slipped quietly toward an exit, touching a communicator. "She knows. Initiate Protocol Omega." Back on the chamber floor, the general's wrist device blinked 3 times. She glanced down, her expression unchanging but a cold realization settling in her eyes. The trap she had walked into was springing shut, but not in the way her enemies had planned. "Order." "I will have order." Vexler's amplified voice cut through the chaos. The security drones formed a protective ring around the general as delegates continued shouting accusations. The Draxian counselor, a tall reptilian figure with iridescent scales, rose to his full height. "These are serious allegations, human. Your species has been part of this council for barely a generation. To accuse founding members of such treachery requires more than circumstantial evidence." General Thorne nodded, pressing a control on her wrist device. The holographic display shifted, showing the broken bodies of human colonists, children among them. The images were stark, horrifying in their detail. "This is Outpost Delta 9, 2,000 civilians, botanists, engineers, teachers." Her voice remained level but carried throughout the now silent chamber. "The attack signature matches weapons developed by the Krith Imperium, yet the approach vectors originated from Alturian space." Curious, isn't it? Both accused species erupted in denials, their representatives gesturing wildly. General Thorne continued, unmoved. "We've identified 7 distinct attack signatures from 7 different council species. Yet all attacks followed the same tactical pattern. Someone is using your technologies while ensuring blame is shared equally. Division through mutual suspicion, an effective strategy. From the highest tier, a voice rarely heard in council proceedings spoke. Elder Tomo of the Witnessed, one of the oldest species in the galaxy, leaned forward on his staff. His species communicated through changing skin patterns, but he used a voice synthesizer for council business. We have monitored Earth since your kind achieved nuclear fission. You are unexpected, unpredictable. Some fear this quality. General Thorne nodded respectfully toward the ancient being. Fear often leads to preemptive action. We understand this. What we cannot understand is cowardice, strikes against civilian targets rather than direct confrontation. The elder's skin rippled with complex patterns. You came alone, General. A single human before the assembled might of the galaxy. This suggests either foolishness or confidence beyond reason. For the first time, General Thorne smiled. Or perhaps something else entirely, Elder. I'm merely the visible piece on the board. As if on cue, communication systems throughout the chamber activated simultaneously. On every screen, the same message appeared. Detailed evidence packets linking members of the Council's Inner Security Directorate to the attacks on human colonies. You see, the General said quietly, while I stand here, human intelligence operatives are delivering this same evidence to every homeworld government in the Conclave. The question now isn't whether I can prove my accusations. She looked up at the Grand Counselors, whose aides were frantically reviewing incoming transmissions. The question is how your peoples will react when they learn their representatives have been risking galactic war without their knowledge or consent. As the implications dawned on the assembly, General Thorne closed her evidence display and stood at parade rest. Earth awaits your response. Choose carefully. The luxurious detention suite assigned to General Thorne belied its true purpose. Elegant furnishings, ambient lighting that adjusted to human circadian rhythms, and a view of the spectacular rings of Nexus Prime through a force-shielded window, all designed to give the illusion of hospitality while keeping her securely contained. General Thorne sat motionless at the edge of a gravity-cushioned chair, eyes fixed on the door. The council had voted to temporarily detain her while investigating her accusations, exactly as she had predicted. The subtle hum of surveillance devices filled the room. Thorne made no effort to locate them. Instead, she remained perfectly still, counting seconds in her head. When she reached exactly 3,000, the lights flickered once. Right on time, she whispered. The door slid open soundlessly, revealing a slender figure with pale blue skin and elongated limbs. Ambassador Lirol of the Mithrin Confederacy, a species known for their neutrality in council affairs, stepped inside and bowed slightly. General Thorne, the Judicial Committee requests your presence for preliminary questioning, he announced loudly for the benefit of any listening devices. Thorne nodded and followed him into the corridor where two more figures waited, a bulky, four-armed Vorax security officer and a diminutive Talaxian with golden fur and large, reflective eyes. The moment the detention suite door closed, the Talaxian touched a small device on her wrist. A soft pulse rippled through the corridor. We have 3 minutes before the surveillance loop is detected, the Talaxian said, her voice barely above a whisper. I am Kira, Head of Information Security for the Talaxian Enclave. The Vorax grunted, his forehand simultaneously checking weapons concealed beneath his uniform. Dorn, Special Tactics. Lirol glanced nervously down the corridor. You were right, General. The moment you left Earth space, assassins were dispatched to 3 human colonies. We barely managed to intercept them. Thorne's expression remained neutral. And the warning I sent to Earth? Delivered, Kira confirmed. Your Admiral Rivera has implemented the Aegis Protocol. Earth's defenses are at maximum readiness, though the Council is unaware. They moved quickly through service corridors, avoiding the main thoroughfares of the massive Council station. Dorn led the way, his upper arms holding scanning devices while his lower hands remained near his concealed weapons. My governments have been tracking these attacks independently, Lirol explained as they walked. The Mithrin noticed the pattern first, surgical strikes against isolated human outposts, each attack mimicking the weapon signature of a different council power. Kira nodded, her golden fur rippling with tension. The Talaxians intercepted communication suggesting a coordinated effort, but we couldn't identify the source. When you made your accusation publicly, several hidden communication channels suddenly activated. They reached a maintenance shaft and began to descend. The environment grew colder, the lighting dimmer as they moved deeper into the restricted levels of the council station. "Why help humans?" Thorn asked bluntly. "Your species have no formal alliances with Earth." Dorn's foreshoulders shifted in what might have been a shrug. "The Vorex remember when we were the newcomers. 500 cycles ago, certain council powers tested our defenses too. They underestimated us as they underestimate you. And they fear what they cannot control," Kira added softly. They reached a heavy security door marked with symbols that translated roughly to historical archives, authorized access only. Kira placed her palm against a scanner, and the massive door began to slide open. "What we're about to show you," Lyral said, his voice suddenly grave, "is known to fewer than 20 beings in the galaxy." The room beyond was vast, filled with data storage units and holographic projectors. At the center stood a circular platform surrounded by what appeared to be ancient artifacts from dozens of species. "The true history of the Council," Kira explained, activating the central platform. "Not the sanitized version taught to member worlds." The platform illuminated, displaying a three-dimensional star map of Council space. Certain star systems were highlighted in red. Every red marker represents a species that challenged Council authority and subsequently suffered natural disasters or unfortunate conflicts that reduced them to client state status or extinction, Dorn explained. Thorn studied the map carefully. "How many?" 43 in the last 10,000 years, Lyral said quietly. "Always following the same pattern. A promising species develops unique capabilities, joins the Council, then raises questions about resource allocation or governance structure." Kira manipulated the controls, zooming to a particular sector. "This is human space. Notice the pattern of attacks, they're not random. They're probes, testing your defenses, response times, and adaptive capabilities." Thorn's eyes narrowed. "Who's behind this?" "The Grand Counselors?" The three aliens exchanged glances before Lyral spoke. "Not directly. There exists a shadow faction within the Council, the Continuity Directorate. They operate with the tacit approval of the founding species but maintain plausible deniability. Their mandate is simple," Dorn continued. "Preserve the existing power structure at any cost. For 8 millennia, they've eliminated or contained any species that might disrupt the status quo." Kira tapped another control, and the image shifted to show a familiar face, a dignified alien with symmetrical cranial ridges and golden eyes. "Diplomatic Minister Varen," Thorn breathed. "The very official who sponsored Earth's admission to the Council." Lyral nodded grimly. "Director of Continuity Operations for the past 3 centuries. He personally oversaw the integration of 17 species, 5 of which subsequently suffered catastrophic accidents when they developed technologies that threatened Council supremacy. The attacks on your colonies aren't just about eliminating human outposts," Kira explained. "They're studying you. Each attack uses different methods to observe how humans respond to various threats." Dorn's upper arms crossed over his chest. "They're treating your people as laboratory specimens, analyzing your adaptability under stress." Thorn was silent for a moment, processing this information. "You've taken an enormous risk showing me this." "Why now?" "Because humans are different," Lyral said simply. "Your species thinks differently, unpredictably. In the 50 years since joining the Council, you've developed technologies along paths no other species considered viable." Kira's large eyes reflected the light from the display. "Some of us believe the Council needs change. The current power structure has grown stagnant, corrupt. Humanity might be the catalyst." A harsh alarm suddenly blared throughout the facility. The massive door they had entered through began to close automatically. "Security breach," Dorn shouted, drawing 2 weapons. "They found us." "Download everything," Thorn ordered calmly, pulling a quantum storage device from a hidden compartment in her uniform. "We need proof." As Kira frantically began transferring files, Lyral checked a small communication device. "Council security forces are converging on this level. We have perhaps 3 minutes." Thorn connected her device to the main console. 2 minutes is all I need." The sound of heavy footsteps echoed from the corridor outside. Dorn took position beside the closing door. "Weapons ready." "There's something else you should know," Kira said urgently as data streamed into Thorn's device. Minister Voren has authorized the deployment of planet-killer weapons. If humans resist further testing, they're prepared to eliminate Earth entirely and harvest genetic samples for study. Thorne's fingers paused momentarily before continuing their work. Then we'll need to accelerate our timetable. The door sealed with a heavy thunk just as security forces reached it. Pounding sounds reverberated through the room as they attempted to breach the entrance. "There's another exit," Lyral said, pointing to a maintenance hatch. "It leads to the diplomatic docking bay. If we can reach the human embassy vessel..." The main door began to glow red as cutting tools attacked it from the other side. "Download complete," Thorne announced, retrieving her device. "Let's move." As they hurried toward the escape route, Thorne cast one last look at the display showing Minister Voren's image. "When I arrived, I accused the Council of attacking our home," she said quietly. "I didn't realize how right I was or how deep the conspiracy went." The maintenance hatch opened before them, revealing a dark passage that would lead either to escape or capture. Behind them, the glowing outline on the main door grew brighter as security forces closed in. The formal proceedings against Earth began with a spectacle designed to impress and intimidate. The Grand Council chamber, normally reserved for ceremonial functions, had been converted into a tribunal. Thousands of delegates from across the galaxy filled the tiered seating, their faces illuminated by the soft blue glow of translation fields. At the center of it all stood a circular platform where Minister Voren addressed the assembly, his golden eyes gleaming with righteous indignation as his voice echoed throughout the chamber. "The evidence is clear," he proclaimed, gesturing to holographic displays showing the destroyed Proxima outpost. "Humanity has violated the most sacred tenets of our galactic compact. Their unprovoked attack on a scientific facility, resulting in the deaths of researchers from 17 member species, demands the strongest response." The assembled delegates murmured in agreement. Humanity's representative chair stood conspicuously empty. General Thorne had mysteriously vanished from her quarters the previous night, further damning Earth in the eyes of many council members. "We must consider," Voren continued, "whether a species so prone to violence belongs among the civilized worlds of..." The massive doors at the far end of the chamber suddenly slid open. Every head turned as a new delegation entered. Leading them was a tall human in the formal white and gold uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps, Admiral Rivera, her dark eyes surveying the chamber calmly as she walked toward the central platform. Behind her came not just human diplomats, but representatives from the Mithran, Talaxian, and Vorax delegations, along with members of 12 other supposedly minor council species. And among them, walking freely, was General Thorne. Voren's speech faltered. "This session is closed to..." "Actually," Admiral Rivera interrupted, her voice carrying throughout the chamber without technological amplification. "Council Procedural Statute 17B allows any member species to present exculpatory evidence at formal proceedings, regardless of scheduled agenda." She smiled thinly. "I believe even the Continuity Directorate must respect council law, Minister Voren." A ripple of confusion spread through the assembly at the unfamiliar term. Voren's golden eyes narrowed dangerously. "I know no such directorate," he replied smoothly. "And General Thorne stands accused of exposing your conspiracy," Rivera finished for him. She reached the central platform and activated her own data device. The chamber's main display system immediately responded, overriding the existing presentation with new information. "For the past 50 Earth years," Rivera announced to the stunned assembly, "a shadow organization within this council has been systematically testing humanity's defenses, studying our responses, and planning our eventual containment or elimination." The displays showed detailed records, communication logs, weapon designs, deployment orders, all bearing authorization codes from the highest levels of council security. "The attack on the Proxima outpost was not conducted by Earth forces," Rivera continued. "It was a false flag operation designed to frame humanity while eliminating evidence of the Directorate's illegal weapons research." Voren's composure cracked. "These are fabrications. Security, remove these humans immediately." But when Council security forces moved to intervene, members of the Vorax, Talaxian, and several other delegations stood in their path. "Perhaps," said Rivera calmly, "you wonder how we accessed these restricted files, or why these delegations stand with Earth today. The answer is simple. We are not the first species you have targeted, Minister. Just the first to fight back effectively. From various points around the chamber, individuals from different species activated small devices simultaneously. The chamber's main lighting flickered as thousands of quantum-linked communication nodes, hidden throughout council space over the previous months, activated in concert. While General Thorne delivered her accusation, yesterday drawing your attention exactly where we wanted, human intelligence operatives and our allies were accessing your secure archives, Rivera explained. Every homeworld in the Conclave is now receiving evidence of the Continuity Directorate's operations against their populations. The chamber erupted in chaos as delegates received urgent communications from their governments. Foren's face contorted with rage. You have no idea what you've done, he hissed at Rivera. The Council has maintained peace for 10,000 years by controlling dangerous species like yours. General Thorne stepped forward. You mean by eliminating any species that might challenge the founding power's authority? That's not peace, Minister. It's tyranny, Foren laughed bitterly. You think your primitive species can stand against us? The Directorate has technologies you cannot imagine. Even now, our fleet approaches your solar system. Earth will be an example to any who would disturb the ordained order. Admiral Rivera smiled. We were counting on that, actually. She activated a new display showing a tactical view of Earth's solar system. A fleet of Council military vessels, bearing the insignia of the founding species, emerged from faster-than-light travel near Mars' orbit. They moved into attack formation, energy weapons charging. The assembly watched in horrified fascination as the fleet launched its first salvo against Earth's orbital defenses. Brilliant energy beams streaked toward the planet, only to vanish meters from their targets. 3 years ago, Rivera explained quietly, we discovered spatial folding technology in an abandoned sector. Rather than weaponizing it as you might expect, we developed a defensive system. On the display, Earth's orbital platforms glowed briefly. Then impossibly the energy weapons fired by the Council fleet emerged behind them, striking their own ships. The Mobius defense grid, General Thorne said, naming the technology for the first time in public. It doesn't block attacks. It redirects them through folded space back to their source. The assembly watched in stunned silence as the mighty Council fleet crippled itself with its own firepower. Not a single human weapon had been fired. We've had this capability for years, Rivera continued. We could have used it offensively. Imagine energy beams that strike from behind impenetrable shields or missiles that emerge inside enemy vessels. Instead, we chose restraint. She turned to face the assembly directly. Humanity does not seek war or domination. We joined this council in good faith, hoping to contribute to galactic peace and progress. Instead, we found a system designed to suppress innovation and maintain the power of a few founding species at the expense of all others. General Thorne stepped forward. The Continuity Directorate has operated in shadows for millennia. Today, that ends. We propose a restructuring of the Council based on merit and contribution, rather than historical precedent. Voren's face had gone ashen. The founding species will never accept this. They already are, Rivera replied, indicating the communications still pouring in. Their populations, learning of the Directorate's actions taken without their knowledge, are demanding accountability. Several founding worlds have already ordered their military forces to stand down. Through it all, Elder Tomo of the Witnessed had remained silent, observing from the highest tier. Now he rose slowly to his feet, his ancient form commanding immediate attention. The chamber fell silent. In 8,000 years, the Elder said through his translator, no species has ever exposed the Directorate. Many tried. All failed. His skin patterns shifted in what might have been amusement. Humans truly are unexpected. He turned to Voren. Your mandate was to preserve stability, not to rule through fear. You have failed, Director. Voren's shoulders slumped in defeat as Council security, no longer following his orders, moved to detain him. Admiral Rivera addressed the assembly once more. Earth does not seek vengeance. We seek reform. The evidence we've presented today will allow each species to decide for themselves what kind of council they wish to belong to. One ruled by fear and secrecy, or one built on true cooperation. General Thorne watched as former enemies became potential allies, their shared indignation at being manipulated overriding centuries of carefully cultivated rivalries. It's working, she said quietly to Rivera. Just as we hoped, the Admiral nodded slightly. Phase 1 complete. But remember, this was the easy part, Thorne finished. The real challenge begins now. Beyond the viewports of the Council Station, the stars seem to shine with new possibility. A galaxy on the cusp of transformation, with humanity serving not as conquerors but as catalysts for change. The Council Station's docking bay hummed with activity, as General Thorne supervised the loading of equipment onto the expedition vessel Prometheus. Its sleek hull, midnight black with subtle blue running lights, stood in stark contrast to the ornate Council ships surrounding it. Are you certain about this? Asked Kira, the Talaxian information specialist who had become one of Thorne's most trusted allies. Her golden fur rippled with concern. The Forbidden Sector has claimed hundreds of exploration teams. The Council restricted access for good reason, regardless of their other deceptions. Thorne checked the manifest on her datapad. The coordinates were mentioned repeatedly in the Directorate's classified communications. Whatever they found there terrified them enough to risk galactic war, rather than let humans discover it. Admiral Rivera approached, accompanied by Lyral and 2 human officers carrying secure containers. The Interim Council has approved the expedition, Rivera reported, though several founding species representatives abstained from the vote. Did they have a choice? Thorne asked with a hint of irony. Half their governments are in upheaval after learning about the Directorate's activities. Rivera smiled thinly. Nevertheless, we maintain the appearance of proper procedure. Our allies have contributed personnel and technology for the mission. Lyral gestured to the containers. Ancient navigation charts from the Mithrin archives. They predate the Council itself and may help you navigate the gravitational anomalies in the Forbidden Sector. Thorne nodded gratefully. In the 2 weeks since the exposure of the Continuity Directorate, alliances had shifted dramatically. Species long suppressed by the Council's power structure had rallied around Earth, while the founding powers struggled to maintain their influence amid public outrage. The Prometheus is ready, General, reported Commander Annika Wells, the vessel's captain. Her dark skin contrasted with her close-cropped silver hair, and her eyes reflected the same determined intelligence as Thorne's. Crew complement of 24, including specialists from 7 allied species. The most diverse expedition team ever assembled, Rivera noted. Fitting, given the circumstances. Thorne turned to her friend and superior officer. You should be leading this mission, Admiral. Rivera shook her head. Someone needs to manage the diplomatic chaos here. Besides, you found this thread. You should be the one to pull it. Final preparations completed, Thorne boarded the Prometheus with her mixed crew of humans and aliens. As the docking clamps released and the ship glided away from the Council Station, she wondered what secrets awaited them in the darkness beyond known space. 3 days later, the Prometheus approached the boundary of the Forbidden Sector. The main view screen showed nothing unusual, just stars and the emptiness between them. Yet instruments detected massive, gravitational distortions that had torn apart countless vessels over the centuries. Standard, navigation systems failing, reported Lieutenant Reese from the pilot station. Shifting to Mithrin charts. The ancient star maps projected holographically over modern displays, revealing patterns invisible to conventional sensors. Following their guidance, the Prometheus navigated through what appeared to be empty space, but was actually a labyrinth of gravitational shears and temporal distortions. Remarkable, said Dr. Voss, the expedition's xenoarchaeologist. These aren't natural formations. They're engineered barriers designed to keep something in or out. After 6 hours of careful navigation, the distortions suddenly ceased. The Prometheus emerged into a region of unusual calm. A perfect sphere of normal space approximately 2 light hours in diameter, centered on what appeared to be an artificial structure. Magnify, ordered Thorne. The view screen zoomed in on the object. It wasn't a planet or asteroid but a massive space station, ancient beyond reckoning yet still maintaining position. Its architecture was unlike anything in known space, with sweeping curves and crystalline protrusions that seemed to bend light around them. Energy readings minimal but present, reported Kira, who had insisted on joining the expedition. The station appears to be in a dormant state rather than abandoned. Life signs? Thorne asked. None detected, Commander Wells answered. But there are areas shielded from our scans. Thorne studied the ancient structure. Prepare a boarding team, full environmental protection and weapons on non-lethal settings. 2 hours later, Thorn led the team through the station's main airlock. The interior was dim, illuminated only by emergency lighting that activated as they progressed. The architecture was disorienting. Corridors that seemed to curve in impossible directions, rooms that appeared larger inside than their exterior dimensions should allow. The material composition is unlike anything in our database, Dr. Voss reported, scanning the walls. It appears to be a crystalline metallic matrix with organic components. They reached what appeared to be a central command chamber. Consoles activated as they entered, holographic displays flickering to life with symbols no one recognized. "Can we translate this?" Thorn asked. Kira stepped forward, activating a device she had brought from the Talaxian archives. "This might help. It's designed to find linguistic commonalities across—" She stopped abruptly as the station itself responded to her device. The symbols shifted, rearranged, and then displayed in recognizable galactic standard. "Welcome returns, progenies of seeding protocol Terra 3. Thorn stared at the message. "It recognizes us?" Dr. Voss approached another console that had activated. "General, I think you should see this." The display showed a star map, but not of the current galaxy. The configuration was subtly different, stars positioned as they would have been millions of years in the past. "This is a historical record," Voss explained. "And look, this marker labeled Terra isn't Earth, it's a planet in the Andromeda galaxy." "That's impossible," Commander Wells objected. "Humans evolved on Earth. We have fossil records, evolutionary history, perhaps not as complete as we believed," Thorn said quietly, studying the display. "What else does it show?" Dr. Voss activated additional displays. "According to this, approximately 3 million years ago, a species called the predecessors faced extinction from something called the convergence. They initiated emergency protocols including genetic seeding of compatible worlds. They transplanted early humans from their original homeworld to Earth?" Kira asked incredulously. "Not exactly," Voss continued reading. "They took genetic material from their own population, modified it to survive in various environments, and seeded those modified sequences on promising worlds. Earth was designated Terra 3 in their program." Thorn's mind raced. "We're their descendants?" "Partially," Voss confirmed. "They engineered the genetic material to evolve naturally in each environment. The key difference was adaptation capabilities. They specifically designed the seedings to produce species that could adapt rapidly to environmental challenges." Another display activated, showing comparative genetic sequences. "This explains why the Directorate feared us," Thorn realized. "Humans adapt faster than any Council species, not just biologically but socially, technologically. It's literally in our DNA. The records indicate the predecessors established this station as a monitoring outpost," Kira added, having accessed another terminal. "They placed it in a space-time bubble to protect it from the convergence while they escaped to somewhere else. And the Council found this station," Thorn said, pieces falling into place. "They discovered humanity's true origins when we first made contact." "Not just that," Dr. Voss said grimly. "According to these logs, the Directorate has been attempting to extract and replicate the adaptive capabilities in human genetics for decades. The attacks on human colonies were experiments, applying different stressors to isolated populations to study accelerated adaptation responses." Commander Wells looked ill. "They were treating us like lab rats." "Worse," Kira said. "According to this terminal, they were planning controlled population reductions to harvest genetic material while eliminating the perceived threat our potential represented." Thorn moved to what appeared to be the central control node of the chamber. "Is there anything about the convergence? What were the predecessors running from?" The station responded to her question directly. "The convergence. Entropic intelligence consumes evolved consciousness, adapts to all resistance. Predecessor calculation, 97.3%. Probability of eventual galactic infiltration. Time estimate uncertain." A new display activated, showing a visualization of something that defied easy description. A spreading darkness that consumed stars, but with an intelligence behind it. A purpose more terrifying than mere destruction. "This is why the Directorate was so afraid," Thorn said softly. "Not just of humans, but of what might follow if we reached our full potential." They found evidence of an ancient threat and decided containment was preferable to preparation. As she spoke, a final display activated, a recording of a being that looked almost but not quite human. Its features were more symmetrical, its eyes larger, its proportions subtly different. Final log entry. It said in a voice that sounded eerily familiar yet alien. Station AR-7 sealed. Monitoring protocols active. If you are receiving this message, you are progeny. You have returned to your origin point. The convergence may still exist. Prepare, adapt, survive. Where we failed, you may succeed. The Grand Council chamber had been transformed. Gone was the hierarchical arrangement that had placed founding species at privileged positions for millennia. In its place stood a circular configuration, where representatives from all worlds sat at equal distance from the center. A physical manifestation of the changes sweeping through galactic society. General Morgan, Thorne stood at the chamber's center alongside Admiral Rivera and representatives from 23 species, including several former founding powers. The evidence from the ancient station had spread throughout the galaxy, despite attempts by remnants of the Continuity Directorate to suppress it. The truth cannot remain hidden, Thorne declared to the assembled delegates. Her voice carried easily through the chamber, no longer requiring technological amplification. For too long, this council has been governed by fear. Fear of change, fear of difference, fear of potential. She activated a holographic display showing the ancient station and its revelations about humanity's origins. The Directorate discovered this information when humans first made contact with the galactic community. Rather than sharing this knowledge, rather than preparing all species for a potential threat, they chose suppression and manipulation. They engineered conflicts between member species to maintain control. They conducted experiments on isolated populations to study and replicate adaptive capabilities. Minister Voren, now stripped of authority but present as a witness, rose from his seat. We did what was necessary for stability. You cannot understand. We understand perfectly, Admiral Rivera interrupted. You believed the existing power structure was worth any price, including genocide. Murmurs rippled through the assembly. Elder Tomo of the witness raised a gnarled hand, requesting to speak. The chamber fell silent. For 12,000 years, the ancient being said through his translator, I have observed this council. I have seen species rise and fall. I have witnessed the Directorate's work, sometimes with approval, sometimes with regret. But never before has a species uncovered the full truth and chosen to share it rather than leverage it for power. His skin patterns shifted in complex waves that his translator didn't attempt to interpret. The predecessors seeded many worlds, he continued. Only Earth-produced beings with the particular combination of adaptability and cooperation necessary to challenge the established order without destroying it. Thorne nodded, respectfully to the elder. Which brings us to our proposal. The evidence from the ancient station suggests that the convergence, whatever it may be, could eventually reach our galaxy. The predecessors fled rather than face it. We suggest a different approach. Admiral Rivera stepped forward. We propose restructuring the council based on the principles found in the ancient station's archives, a system the predecessors themselves designed but never implemented, focused on adaptation and cooperation rather than stability through control. The holographic display shifted to show a new organizational framework, one that emphasized collaborative research, shared defense, and mutual development without suppressing the unique qualities of member species. Humanity offers all our technological developments, including the Mobius defense grid, as shared resources. Thorne continued. In return, we ask only that the era of manipulation and hidden agendas end today. A representative from one of the founding species, a crystalline being whose thoughts manifested as geometric patterns in the air around them, moved forward. Your species has suffered greatly at the hands of the Directorate, they said, their patterns indicating sincere regret. You have the power to demand reparations, to claim authority as the predecessors' designated inheritors. Yet you propose equality instead. Why? Thorne smiled slightly. Because we understand something the Directorate never did. True adaptation isn't about individual survival at any cost. It's about creating systems that allow all to thrive through diversity. Each species brings unique perspectives and capabilities. Together we are stronger than the sum of our parts. The crystalline being's patterns shifted to indicate acceptance. One by one, representatives from across the galaxy registered their positions. Some with enthusiasm, others with reluctance, but all recognizing that the old order had ended. As the votes were tallied, Admiral Rivera turned to Thorn. "We've actually done it," Thorn nodded. "Phase 1, at least. Rebuilding will be harder than exposing the corruption." "Speaking of corruption," Rivera said quietly, "what about the remaining Directorate operatives?" Before Thorn could answer, a commotion erupted at the chamber's entrance. Security personnel surrounded someone attempting to force their way inside. As the guards parted, a human figure stumbled into view, a woman in tattered clothing, her face gaunt but determined. "Commander Reese?" Thorn recognized the pilot from the Prometheus expedition with shock. "You were reported missing after returning to Earth." Reese straightened, her eyes wild with urgency. "Directorate sleeper agents, General. They've activated a weapon beneath the Pacific Ocean, technology salvaged from another ancient station. They're calling it the Genesis Protocol." Rivera's face paled. "What does it do?" "It's designed to trigger rapid evolutionary changes in all life on a planet," Reese explained breathlessly. "They're trying to force evolve Earth's population in ways they can control, or destroy us in the attempt." The chamber erupted in chaos. Thorn raised her voice above the din. "This is exactly what we've been fighting against. The belief that life can and should be controlled rather than allowed to adapt naturally." She turned to the assembled representatives. "Earth needs the Council's help, not as subordinates but as equals facing a common threat." The response was immediate and overwhelming. Species that had been enemies for centuries offered ships, technology, expertise. The crystalline being stepped forward again. "The Directorate manipulated us all," they said. "Today we begin to make amends." Within hours, a joint fleet assembled, the first truly cooperative military force in Council history. Vessels of different designs and capabilities formed a cohesive unit under combined leadership. As Thorn prepared to board the command ship, Elder Tomo approached her privately. "You should know," he said, his translator conveying subtle harmonics of respect, "that I have lived long enough to have met the predecessors." Thorn stared at him in shock. "That's impossible. They vanished millions of years ago." The Elder's skin displayed patterns too complex for his translator to interpret. Time is not always as linear as most species perceive it. The predecessors did not merely fear the convergence. They understood it was a natural consequence of consciousness evolving in isolation. Their solution was flawed because they too sought control rather than true adaptation. "What are you saying?" Thorn asked. "That humanity's greatest strength is not your genetic adaptability, but your capacity to imagine connections others cannot see. The convergence consumes consciousness that evolves in isolation, but perhaps consciousness that evolves through cooperation creates something it cannot consume." Before Thorn could question him further, the Elder moved away. "We will speak again, General. For now, your world needs you." 24 hours later, Thorn stood on the observation deck of the flagship, watching Earth grow larger in the view screen. Behind her, representatives from 32 species worked in harmony, coordinating the fleet's approach. Admiral Rivera joined her at the viewport. "Advanced teams have located the device. It's unlike anything we've encountered before, but our new Mithran allies believe they can neutralize it by adapting techniques from their ancient archives." Thorn nodded. "And the Directorate operatives?" "Most have surrendered, realizing they've lost popular support. The few extremists still active are being contained by a joint security force." Rivera studied her friend's face. "You don't seem as relieved as I expected." "I'm thinking about what comes next," Thorn admitted. "We've transformed the Council, saved Earth, but the Elder's words suggest our greatest challenges lie ahead." "The convergence? Perhaps, or perhaps something else entirely." Thorn turned to face the diverse crew working behind them. "But whatever comes, we'll face it differently than the predecessors did. Not through fear and control, but through cooperation and mutual adaptation." The ship's communication system chimed, indicating they were within range of Earth's defense grid. On screen, the orbital platforms that house the Mobius defense grid acknowledged the fleet's arrival, not as potential enemies to be warded off, but as allies in a common cause. "General Thorn," called a young lieutenant, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth. All Directorate operations have been neutralized. The Genesis device is contained." A cheer went up throughout the bridge. Thorn accepted congratulations with a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. She knew this victory, significant as it was, represented only the beginning of a longer journey. Later, as the Allied fleet established orbit around Earth, Thorne returned to the observation deck alone. The planet below shone blue and green against the darkness of space. Her home, yet also a world whose true history had been hidden for millions of years. You were right.